Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Five Star Revolution podcast with your host, CJ Price. This is another great episode of the Five Star Revolution podcast. It's an audio only version due to technical difficulties with our camera, so we apologize, folks. But don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Five Star Revolution Podcast, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Five Star Revolution Podcast. Tonight, we have a veteran inside the wrestling ring. He is based out of Fort Worth, Texas. His name is Sebastion Envi. How you doing tonight, sir?
I am good. Just trying to get my dogs to calm down for 2 seconds.
Not a problem. So we always have dogs, babies crying in the background, so no worries, man.
They don't really
So
make that much noise. They're just aggressive in their desire for affection at the most inopportune times.
So let's start from the beginning here. I always ask this question to every single wrestler who comes on my podcast because everyone has a different story. Were you a fan of wrestling growing up? And if so, who are your favorites?
Yes, of course. And Demolition, Axe and Smash was always my favorite. Tag teams, well, I'm a huge mark myself for tag team wrestling. Um, and the usual others, your Hulk Hogan's, your Ultimate Warriors, when I was a kid. And then as I got older and saw wrestling in a different way, I started to get more into your uh, Dynamite Kids, your Kurt Hennings, your Bret Harts, and the more technical guys.
Okay, so you were a WWF fan growing up?
Oh yeah, I could always remember going over one of my friend's house, and he had just stacks and stacks of the old WWF magazine, and he and I would just look through them, look at the pictures, and then sometimes cut them out, stuff like that. I mean, be same thing every weekend I go over there. There'd be like some hours spent just looking through the magazines again and again and again.
So, how did you get your start in the professional wrestling business? Like, how did you find out about wrestling school in your area?
So when I lived in Louisiana, actually, there was uh, an indie show that had a weekend show like every Saturday, and then they at the end of the show they would say advertise their wrestling school or whatever. And at the time, it was like an hour. It'd be like hour and a half, 2 hour ride from where I was living to go to the school. I was all set up to do it, and then I just didn't get a lot of support um, in the relationship that I was in at the time for what I wanted to do wrestling wise. So I just backburnered it. And when I moved to Texas, it just happened one day. I was just taking a different way to go to work, and happened to pass by a building that said XCW Wrestling on the side of it. Looked into it, found out that they were a weekly show for the longest time. They ran Denton for a little over a decade. It was kind of on the past its glory days when I finally found it and got with the owner and started training there. But um, it was still definitely a worthwhile place that I'm glad that I was able to get my start at.
So, what were your expectations when you first started training?
Oh man, for it to be difficult, which it was very much so. Outside of that, I guess I didn't really have any specific expectations of training past just wanting to ideally succeed at it and you know, get to actually be on a wrestling show.
So, my meaning by expectations is, did you expect it to be as painful and hurt a lot? Because I used to be a wrestler, and when I first started wrestling, I didn't expect that ring to be as hurtful as I remembered. Because as you know, the ring only has like 2 inches of padding, and the rest of it is wood and steel. So it hurts, man.
Oh yeah, I mean that's that's if you get to work a show with somebody that has even the proper padding on the ring. I've certainly been on rings that haven't had any pads or very very thin padding that are stiffer than others. So yeah, that's. Uh, but as far as like expecting it to hurt, I expected a fair amount, and granted, I've experienced more or less, as the years have gone on through training or just through injury and stuff. But I guess you never uh, expect uh, your expectations definitely don't jive with with reality and what actually happens.
So, what made you want to become a wrestler and train to be a wrestler?
Just a lifelong fan, and of course, and like I said, when I spotted the XCW wrestling, it just I looked into it and just thought more about it and just said, screw it, I was gonna get off my butt and do it because when I'm old and gray and in my rocking chair on my porch, I want to be able to look back on my life and know that I tried everything that I wanted to do, that I left no stone unturned. So I was gonna give it a go and just see what happens. If I succeeded or failed at it, wouldn't matter. I just wanted to try it.
So, do you remember your first match in your career, like your official first match? And if you do, what do you remember from that match?
It was with IHWE in October of 2020. Um, and a bunch of the woman that I'm with now, she came with me, of course, to support me. And then a bunch of people from like work um, came to support me, and they were sitting in the stands. So I had this just goofy, cheesy grin when I came out of the curtain, and they started like yelling for me, and I looked up in the stands and saw them. It was just this. So that's pretty much what I remember most from it. It's just a stupid looking grin that I had on my face, and just the pride of people um, coming out to support me. I think those are the two big things I remember about that.
Okay. So, what would you say to that person who just started wrestling, the Sebastion Envy who just started wrestling, to the person that he is now?
So, what would I say to my younger self?
Yes.
Um, I tell him to market, promote himself better, because I have just through um, my 9 to 5 and just my college years, stuff like that. I have a multimedia skill set where I can shoot and cut and produce videos. I've done video for a few different wrestling promotions. I started doing a bunch of videos for myself, for my matches, stuff like that, promos and stuff. I do, short films and event videography and a whole bunch of other stuff. But I've had these skills all these years, and I did not really use them until um, like the most recent handful of years. So I would definitely tell my younger self to um, dial up and use that multimedia skill set sooner to promote and market yourself, because you're trying to separate yourself from hundreds, if not thousands, of people who call themselves wrestlers, and it's you got to do everything, use every tool at your disposal to separate yourselves uh, from other people. And I could have given myself just a leg up sooner um, by leaning into that skill set that I have. So it's kind of
Hey,
frustrating in hindsight that I didn't do that, but you
I
know,
was gonna say you missed the boat right there, man. With those skills, I would have made videos and highlight videos, promos, and all that stuff to make myself look better.
yeah. So it's just
Or
trying
you can
to.
do that now. You can do that now. It's never
Oh
too
yeah,
late.
I've had some people hit me up about highlight videos and stuff specifically, but other than that, I mean, I have like my various short film projects that I'm working on. I'm shooting a music video with a guy in the next couple weeks, and some other projects and stuff like that. So I'm definitely doing it now. But hindsight is always 2020, of course.
So let's talk about a little bit about Sebastian Envy. For those fans, for those people that are listening right now who don't know who you are, you mind explaining about the Sebastian Envy character?
They always say that the best characters are just just you yourself dialed up to a thousand, a million, what have you, and that's what I am. Like I've wanted to figure out a way to marry um, my two loves in life, which is film production and professional wrestling, and that's the kind of persona that I've emerged with, and just head to the ring with the idea that as long as folks stick to the script, we all look good.
Very good answer. So I like to ask wrestlers, how do they deal with backstage politics? So Sebastion Envi, how do you deal with backstage politics when things are not looking so good for you?
Uh, I don't really pay too much attention to that. I mean, with any promotion, any company, there's going to be people who are in the higher standing in the eyes of the promoter, the booker, than others, be it for their ring work or their friendship or whatever reason. So, I mean, that stuff's going to always be present. I long since I've gotten way past the days when I would get more frustrated uh, than I used to when I was younger, and just try to mitigate it the best I can, and just not try to bring any sort of negativity um, to my business, and just be savvy about maneuvering through the BS, I guess.
Very good answer, man. And to piggyback on the backstage politics, sometimes I feel like in independent wrestling, especially, shouldn't be a thing because independent wrestling should be fun and a place where you should elevate yourself and try to become better. So that way, if you have an opportunity to go to the big stage, then you're going to be prepared. But backstage politics shouldn't be a thing. But you're right, man. It's always going to be a part of wrestling, no matter where you go.
That's just life in general, because they're all. I mean, even not outside of wrestling. I mean, you look at any sort of workplace jobs. You're always going to have like um, that kind of political backbiting BS going on with people trying to get ahead of others. Anytime there's money involved with anything, there's going to be some political mess.
So without saying any names, mind sharing which promotion was the worst that you have worked for so far and why?
Um, so my trainer always said that you should work a crap show or two specifically so you can kind of identify what is not a crap show and stay away from them, be it how the show is run, talent they use, how the booker promoter is, how they interact with you, respect or lack thereof, and all that kind of stuff. um, there's been a few that are terrible, either from the that have been terrible, mostly just from a ring standpoint and just a just uh, talent, just the how the show was put together and stuff like that. It's like they just I don't know what it is about some. It seems there's like a I don't know almost like a status symbol to calling yourself like a wrestling promoter, where because when tax time comes around, a whole bunch of promotions will pop up with people spending their income tax returns, buying a ring, putting on a show, and all that kind of stuff. And just be one hit wonders. Um, and they end up just being like the worst of the worst when it comes to promotions as far as conditions and talent and pay and just the lack of a respect level. And there have been some some bad ones.
Speaking of pay, have you ever been stiffed in your career for pay?
Yeah, one time on a 12-hour trip, um, and we talked about money before I went, myself and a buddy of mine, and then because there's no way we would have driven 12 hours not having to pay agreed upon, and then the promoter was trying to make up excuses at the time when he had to pay us, and he had like some names from like the Northeast, so it's like the dude had money, they already got paid, um, and he was trying to like dig around with us, whatever, and we kind of like contemplated extracting something from him, but we kind of weighed the two of us against how many people were um, would be loyal to him to, whatever we would and decide if what we were going to leave with was going to be worth the hassle to get it from
Mind,
him. And we
mind
decided
sharing
to just,
the excuse the promoter had?
oh, he just like, he didn't even really have a specific excuse. He just had this, he like, was just stuttering on, whether or not we agreed to pay, which, like I said, I'm not driving 12 hours if pay is not agreed upon.
Yeah, man, that's ridiculous. I would have been extremely mad.
Yeah, to say the least, I would definitely was. It was lucky it happened at a time. Speaking of, tax returns and stuff, I had got my tax refund, so I had the uh, the money to be able to get us like back home.
So, dealing with those type of promoters that have heat with each other and they tell you, "Hey, man, you can't work over there because I have heat with that promoter." What do you say to those promoters?
Say that has nothing to do with me. I'm a professional, so if I'm booked uh, for a show, then I'm gonna work that show. I'm not worried about any of the other BS. That's for like y'all
So,
to work out.
so you don't care if they say, "Hey, I'm not gonna book you here anymore because you worked with this promotion."
No, it's just childish BS. I mean, if they were serious about just, you know, making money, making their company better, then they wouldn't be worried about that sort of thing. They need that, like, that's like high school type of, BS. Like, we're supposed to be grown up people, adults, professionals with the goal of making money. So we should all be focused on what gets that done.
So this is the portion of the podcast where I asked the wrestler to cut a promo for me if you can. Do you mind doing that for us on your next opponent?
Sure. I mean, I got a match this Saturday.
In character. I want to hear it in character. Give it your all. I want to hear 100% Sebastion Envi promo.
Ladies and gentlemen, children of the interwebs out there, it's Sebastion Envy, the strong style cinephile. And if you're in Texas, Bedford, Texas, MPX, Wicked Waves. It's a four-way ladder match to determine the number one contender for the Prospect title. Now, what the Prospect title allows you to do when you defend that title 3 times, you get a guaranteed title shot at the MPX Heavyweight Championship. Now, Sebastion Envy, MPX Heavyweight Champion. Now, could you imagine that story? See, I have, and I've written the script. And the climax is the greatest thing you will ever see in a wrestling ring. And it all starts this Saturday, MPX Wicked Ways, when I outlast my 3 opponents and I become number one contender for the MPX Prospect Championship. I carve my path to the top, and everybody else, they just get left on the cutting room floor.
I like that, man. So you're a face.
Oh, heck no.
You're not a face.
Ew. I hate slapping hands and kissing babies and all that kind of stuff. I'm naturally like a douchebag, so I like being able to tell people how I really feel about them in shows and stuff like that. I mean, it's like you don't move as much merch at times as some others, but yeah,
Being
I've
in here is so fun because you can get away with so many things in and outside of the ring. You can talk crap to the opponent, you can talk crap to the referee, and you can talk crap to the crowd. And sometimes the crowd eats that up, man, and they boo you, and it's a high that you never want to go away.
oh yeah, I've had some fun. That's always the best thing when you have those crowds that have those people that really kind of give it to you, just give it back to you, and then this whole mob mentality thing. Because if you have like a, you know couple people in this section, a couple people in that section, a couple people in another section that really get into it and really give it back to you. People around them will kind of feed off of that and get into it, and just it's always fun when there's a lot of interactivity between the audience and the wrestlers. That's one thing that's fun about indies and being on this level. It's just that intimacy that you have between the crowd and the wrestlers, that closeness.
Absolutely, 100% agree. So besides pro wrestling, is there any other sports that you watch or that you like?
Football. I'm a huge Denver Broncos fan, even though my franchise has sucked for like 5 years now. We're gonna suck again this year, so I deal with that frustration and disappointment. But I still bleed that orange and blue. I'm a
My
Knicks fan when it comes to basketball, and I haven't had anything to cheer for in like 20, 30 years. So.
my best friend is a huge Denver Broncos fan, man, and he goes to like two games a year. We live in Massachusetts, so he travels all the way to Colorado to watch those games. So I'll give it up to him.
Oh yeah, that's a good guy right there. Like they're coming to Dallas to play the Cowboys here in a few weeks, and I was talking to my brother. My brother's a huge Cowboys fan, and we were talking about going to the game and stuff. But after the start that my team has had, I am no longer interested in going to that game because I'm not going to go through the hassle and spend all that money just to see my team get mollywopped.
I agree there, man. I'm a huge baseball fan. My team is the Red Sox, and they just got whooped tonight, so I'm kind of pissed about that, but that's okay. So why does
Yeah.
wrestling mean so much to you, man?
It's just everything about it. It's just the I'm a filmmaker. I'm into production, so just the production of it all, from um, the workers in the ring to the just the setup, the set, if you will, of the wrestling ring, and then in the chairs and barricades and all that kind of stuff. It's just and the stories told in the ring. It's fun. It's an escape. It's a place where people can just get together, just leave everything at the door, and just yell scream their heads off at people they like or people they don't like. It's an experience. It's an escape, and that it's just special.
I agree, man. When I used to wrestle and get in the ring, it took out so much frustration and getting in the ring and taking that frustration out on your opponent feels damn good.
That too, yeah.
So let's talk about what you got going on in the next 3 years. What can we expect out of you in the next 3 years?
Yeah, hopefully seeing me more. That's like the big thing. I mean, that's stuff everybody goes through, is just trying to find ways to get seen and on different shows in different places. I was hoping to have some international stuff going last year, but then of course the Rona apocalypse kicked off and screwed up all my plans. So and then kind of messed up this year as well. But hopefully in 2022 I will have some bookings outside of the U.S., Canada, UK, and stuff like that. I want to get to Japan at some point. Uh, my goal is to, in the near future, is to freaking get AEW to notice me. So I have had a handful of friends who have had like tryouts and stuff like that on Dark, and that's what I'm trying to get to, and just be seen. I just want to be seen. I want to be heard um, and enjoyed. Because people, when they see me, like they like my matches, they like my work, they like who I am. It's just a matter of getting people to see me. I'm like a cult classic, like a cult classic movie where it's like once you haven't seen it, but once you do, you're like, oh my god, this is the greatest movie I've ever seen. That's what I am when it comes to like people who see me in wrestling. When they finally see me, they're like, oh, wow, you're really good. Wish I would have known about you sooner. So I'm just trying to conquer that and just get out there more so more people know me.
So you've been in the business for about a decade now, correct?
Sadly, yes. And I say sadly because I'm still at the point where I am now, trying to get people like knowing me, like more people. Again, hindsight being 2020, not using my skill set, leveraging my skill set when I was, years ago. More, I feel more people should know about me, and that was my fault because like this business is truly like you get out of it as much as you put into it, and I should have been putting in more. So I'm trying to play catch up now.
So the reason I asked you that question is because you might, I know definitely you have, not might, but you have funny backstage stories or funny road stories. Do you mind telling me a few?
Uh, hmm. I don't really have like too many because that's one of the things. Like I haven't had a whole bunch of times where I've ridden the road with cars full of guys. Also been a source of frustration with me. It's always been me kind of running the roads uh, on my own. I mean, it's so I remember riding home from San Antonio when February of 2012 because I broke my leg and my ankle in a match at a show there, and they had like some like I don't know, I wouldn't call her a nurse, but that's what they were calling her backstage, and she wrapped me with this just bulky, weird, super heavy, not done right wrap on my ankle, and she told me I had a very uh, sprain, a severe high ankle sprain is what she called it, a very severe ankle sprain, and I had to ride home with like my foot on the console between the passenger seat and the driver's seat, which sucked. And 5 hours of that, and come to find out, that's when I needed to have surgery to repair um, my ankle, and it was a severe sprain, ankle sprain. All right, it was just a little bit more than what that lady thought it was.
Wow, that sucks, man. Sorry to
It,
hear that.
it did, and then like we were like my boy who was like I went down there uh, two buddies of mine that I trained with, and two of us were tagged together, and then my buddy was on the other side with some just yard tard who was at the show, shouldn't have been in the ring, any ring whatsoever, but he was getting a try out there. And after my foot was broken with the yard tard in the ring, he tags in my buddy, and my buddy's like, I can barely stand up, and he like gets me, and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, I messed up my ankle." So he was like, "Okay," and he like shoots me off.
Wow.
And I took like 2 steps and just like not even 2 steps, like a step and just like collapsed down in the ring. And I was like, "You stupid mofo! Like, I need to get out of this ring."
So, a couple more questions for you, Mr. Envy, before I let you go. Would you say wrestling has changed your life? If so, how?
A lot more scar tissue. Um, it's I guess made me realize to get what I want that I need to be more persistent um, with the work I put in to get it. 'Cause like I said, with this, you're trying to get bookings, you're trying to get the attention of promoters and promotions, bookers, and all that kind of stuff, but you're competing with however many other people who are bombarding the same shows with messages every day. So it's like you gotta be persistent, you gotta be hungry, you gotta want it, and you gotta work for it. I mean, when the struggle is real, when the grind is real, the success will be real. That's what I try to stick to.
Very good answer, man. Very good answer. So this is my last question. I wish we had more time because I had a bunch of more questions to ask you, but trying to keep the show for half an hour.
Right?
Maybe we can have you on someday in the future. But my last question is, when it's all said and done, and you're supposedly retired, because we all know wrestlers never really retire. What would you want to do in the wrestling business? Like, would you want to be a trainer or help backstage, a manager? What would you want to do, or do you want to just completely leave wrestling once you're done? Once you're done.
No, when I'm done, I want to partake in the production side of things, as far as um, camera stuff or just um, production stuff, whatever. As far as that side of things, and that's like a goal of mine as well, is to get on one of these like larger companies in a production capacity when I'm done.
Hey WWE man, sign Sebastion Envi for your production.
Exactly.
So, where can our listeners find you on social media?
I am at Sebastion Envy. My name is spelled SEB. Oh, forgot how to spell my own name for a second there. Freaking dogs are messing with me. SEBASTIONENVI. So it's not like the regular way of spelling Sebastian. But at Sebastion Envy on Instagram, on Twitter, and yeah, I definitely need more followers, more tweets, more retweets, whatever gets me noticed.
Well, Mr. Sebastion Envi, it was a true pleasure having you on tonight on the Five Star Revolution podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. We're sorry we couldn't do the camera version of this podcast, but maybe next time we can have you on camera so everybody can see your pretty face.
Right, exactly. I'll work on that.
So for you listeners, don't forget, join us on Facebook, Five Star Revolution Podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Five Star Revolution Podcast. And Mr. Sebastian, we wish you the best of luck in your career, sir.
All right, thanks.
Have a great night, man.
You too.